What is good, John? Sean, this game, man. Back with yet some more NFL content on the channel, man. Yet some more sports content on the channel. As today, we have the Super Bowl Power Rankings reaction show where we're going to react to. Of course, the last, I think second to last reaction Power Rankings we'll have. I think they do one more like the end of the season before we obviously get into like the off season, kind of finishing out where the year is. So of course we'll react to that too as well. But it's here, Philadelphia, Kansas City. They were able to do it. I mean, I think some people were a little bit hopeful that Washington would be able to pull it off. It would have been a cool story for sure if Jaden was able to at least get to the bowl. But unfortunately, the Saquon Barkley in that run game was just too much. And I think that's going to be the same case here as my Super Bowl prediction. I do think that Philadelphia is going to get it done. I know, can't really bet against Patrick Mahomes. And that's not like I even don't dislike them. I'm not a Chiefs hater. But I do feel like the run game will be a little bit too much to handle. I feel like Saquon will be able to get off and go off again. And I feel like that'd be a good storyline too as well to have them win. And of course, it's going to be close though, regardless, inside or out. But let me know down below what you guys' predictions are. Let me know what you guys are doing for it. I'm throwing a little kickback myself here for a little Super Bowl party over here on this side, man. So, you know, kick it, enjoy it. Hope you are with friends and family and have a good time, man. Or if you're watching by yourself, I hope you still have fun and, you know, enjoy it. If you're going to the Super Bowl, let me know how that experience is. Maybe I'll get to go one day. Today ain't that day though. So let's go ahead and jump into this, man. Also, huge shout out to the NBA for all the moves, man. Luka Doncic, welcome to LA. You know what I'm saying? Welcome to LA. You know what I'm saying? I was surprised that we got rid of AD. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I don't know if that's going to affect our defense or not. Only time will tell. I think the Mavs were definitely stupid though. 100%, especially not for even like consulting him. And that's supposed to be your all-star superstar. Regardless of concerns, I feel like that's more of those things. It's like, we're not going to let you being a star outrule the team, and they're going to kind of make an example out of them to make it sure, like I said, nobody's safe. If it costs you a championship and possibly ultimately your job, because also I'm hearing that he didn't even tell other higher ups in the organization, you going to look like the dumb one, especially if he come over here and get ring number 18. Oh, and as always, if I didn't say it already, man, like, comment, and subscribe when you guys weigh in. I can't remember if I honestly said that. My memory be going in and out sometimes, man. But help support the channel, show more love to the series that we're doing here as far as like sports content. If y'all want to see more of it, showing the support on this video is how we get more of it. Let's get into the action, though.
It's a brand new edition of NFL Power Rankings.
Dang.
It is presented by Energizer. It is a special edition
They gotta be at home in the hotel. This audio ain't it.
of the show. I'm not in studio. I'm actually in a hotel in Arlington, not too far from Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium.
Dallas?
We got the East-West Shrine Bowl coming up on Thursday. Eric's also on the road. His 40 time is amazing. That's how he was able to make his flight in order to hang out with guys that are going to be playing in the Senior Bowl. But when it comes to football, man, this is awesome. It's the best time of the year. We got the draft around the corner, and we do know the Super Bowl matchup.
We got to sprint to the finish, right? Just like my run through the airport. Yeah, no, this is a great time of year, especially.
He really ran through the airport. Hey, look, if you've actually flown for real, you know you gotta get in that bit like 3 hours early, low key. Like the amount of check-ins and stuff that you gotta do. If you don't get there 3 hours early, you get there 2 hours early, you might be late.
Especially for the draftniks out there, they're starting to update their needs list, their prospect lists, and we'll be watching a lot of them, you and I, between our two locations.
Yes, we will have everyone covered here. But if you're checking out the show, you want to know the rankings. And it's not really a huge surprise to see who's in that top spot. 6 consecutive weeks. The Kansas City Chiefs, they just figure out ways to win football games.
So
and we might be talking about a history-making team with a third consecutive Super Bowl. The team they will match up against moved up 2 spots. That is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bills drop a spot, and the Commanders fall into that 4th position. We'll talk about all 4 of these teams. But hat tip, major respect. We got to start with the #1 squad.
And let me know down below, do y'all agree with that? Obviously, this would be whether you have Kansas City or Philadelphia winning. Is Kansas City the best team? And I feel like, are they the best team? Yes, but does the best team always win? No. Like, best overall complete team, I feel like they might have a slight edge, right? Obviously, you don't go 16-1 and walk your way through the postseason without being the best team in the league. Does the best team always win the Super Bowl, though? It's like college football. Does the best team always win the national championship? Alabama ain't win this year, so no.
Yeah, Mike, we experienced something pretty similar, I think, with New England a generation or two ago, and it obviously got a little tiresome for fans to see the same team in there every single year. we're watching the greatest quarterback of his generation, even if the stats don't always add up. He wasn't in the MVP conversation necessarily this year, but Patrick Mahomes delivered a tremendous game against the Bills defense that was shorthanded. He took advantage. He cut him. He got the 3 touchdowns that he needed, and his teammates certainly helped him out too. Xavier Worthy, what a tremendous game he had too. So here's a new face, right? Here's a guy that we watched at the Combine last year blow it up, and he's a new addition to this team. So there are some new faces there. And listen, like I agree, greatness, you appreciate it in the moment, or you try to at best, and that's what we're witnessing right now.
Yeah, I use the analogy all the time, and I think the same can be said for, and you made reference to the Patriots, Tom Brady. I'm glad I was an adult and understood what was happening. I was still a kid when Jordan's Bulls were kind of running through the NBA, but I understood what was going on. I like to be able to say that I've seen those guys play and I understand what greatness really is. We're witnessing that right now. And I think there's a layer to this conversation. For a Buffalo perspective, I asked you this question last week, and we'll talk about the Bills and their downfall. But on last week's show, I said, hey, is this team, is this their best chance? Is this the best team that we've seen Buffalo? Now, they fall short. I'd ask you the same thing about this Chiefs squad, because the last 2 Super Bowls, it does feel different to watch this year's Kansas City Chiefs squad than the one that we've seen in the last 2 campaigns.
And I can agree with that. This one seemed more like a wounded horse, it's not like limping to get to here. It hasn't seemed as they haven't seemed like a 16-1 team. And that's why I said, are they the best team on paper, record? Yes. Really? I don't know. 16-1, I mean, the division isn't exactly that strong, so that boosts it. But I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel as It doesn't feel like they're as dominant as the past 2 teams that have won Super Bowl. So that's why, for me, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Philly.
Yeah, they've mastered these close game victories, and it's seemingly, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo coming up with great plans every single week and understanding, what needs to be done to win this game, right? This is, again, I would say a different version of the Chiefs than we've seen, at least for most of the year. And you're right, this team in particular has had to overcome a lot. The left tackle issues, obviously at times the secondary was a little shorthanded, the receiver injuries as well. So a lot of new faces in these spots, and yet the same old consistency. Andy Reid, great game plans. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all those guys executing it. It's pretty brilliant stuff to watch in real time.
That needs to be
obviously, they're going to get Philly's best game, right? I mean, even though not everybody from that Eagles team was there when they lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, they probably felt they should have won. But there's no doubt that the Eagles are going to come in and say, all right, this time we cannot be beaten, right? We have to be able to get a lead, hang on, and don't give it up, right? Because when the Chiefs start dictating the flow of play, that's when things get real scary. Obviously, Mahomes in the fourth quarter, you can never count that guy out. So, whatever it takes to save the energy of those pass rushers, make sure you rotate throughout the game for the Eagles and get after him, because, boy, defending these guys for 4 quarters, even if the offensive numbers don't look all that mind-blowing by game's end, they will have cut you at some point and dug deep, and that's what they often do. And I feel Philly knows that more than anybody. Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, everybody else who went through it the last time.
I don't understand how Spags is not on the sidelines, not as a DC of this team, but as a head coach. Had some interviews, according to a lot of our insiders. Are you surprised we're not talking about him, really leading the charge and kind of having the reins of his own team?
Yeah, I think everybody knew in that key spot, that 4th down with just under 2 minutes to go, they said Spags is going to bring a blitz. I'm sure Josh Allen knew it too, but he wasn't able to pick out exactly where the pressure was coming from. He kind of drifted into it. That's a classic Spags call. We've seen enough big Chiefs games over the last 5, 6, 7 years to where we kind of know this guy is going to bring it. He's not going to go down without swinging. And it's just sort of that instinct that makes you think this guy is an exceptional football coach. Now, his first go-round as a head coach did not go well. Ask St. Louis Rams fans. They remember it all too unfondly, I should say. But, it begs the question, does he deserve that second chance? Is this somebody who's been overlooked the last couple cycles, even with a couple of token interviews along the way? So, I still believe the Hall of Fame should be open to assistant coaches, guys like Jimmy Johnson from Philadelphia and others who, Monty Kiffin and these great defensive coordinators. I would put Steve Spagnuolo in that wing too, because I think he belongs. But let's not end his chapter as just a coordinator and a one-time head coach. I still am holding out hope that he can get a second opportunity. I think he deserves
New Orleans, then.
Saquon is just doing it differently in a different position and is also fantastic. Is he enough to run this team to a championship?
Yeah,
Definitely
I mean, at this point, who am I to doubt him, right? You know, we've sort of said this is not the age of the running backs; it's a quarterback-driven era. But you've seen this slow shift, and I think this last free agent class with guys like Saquon, Barkley, and Josh Jacobs and others who really thrived in new environments. The run game is cycling back in, and Saquon, I think, is kind of holding the scepter right now. He is the guy at the front of the line and can make people miss. Can make those big plays out of nothing, and it was a devastating rushing attack. Right, they had no stop. They had no answers for that, and no way to stop it. So, yeah, I mean, this might be the one guy at that position right now who I think has a chance to kind of out Mahomes a little bit. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts isn't going to play his role, but Barkley is going to be such a weapon. They haven't even used him that much as a receiver, too, so they've got that in their back pocket. But what he does as a runner is absolutely scintillating, and he's that good. He deserves to be in that MVP conversation for good reason.
Of course.
We can love up Saquon Barkley. And 2 years ago, I think about Jalen Hurts, who, if I'm not mistaken, was runner-up in that MVP vote. I think that's how talented he was. And we actually thought, I mean, geez, down the stretch, he could have won that football game. Is he still that same guy? And I know that's hard to make an argument that he's not, just based off of, the 3-touchdown performance and getting into that end zone and looking as good as he did on the ground game. But it doesn't have the same type of his fingerprints on the game aren't what we saw a couple years ago when he could have been the league MVP.
Oh, we talking about Jalen?
Yeah, it's a fair question to ask. He may not be.
I thought they were talking about Saquon. I was going to say, I thought we just agreed that he would deserve to be in his voting.
Quite as prolific as we see him in that last Super Bowl against the Chiefs, bombing it out. We don't see that quite as much. Obviously, it's a little bit more of a ball control offense. And Saquon certainly has something to do with it. But I also think it has to do with the fact that Hurts is kind of taking a beating, right? But the fact that he was able to come out and pretty much dispel those injury questions about after getting his leg bent backward pretty far, to the point where his availability was at least in some doubt early in the week. That question was kind of thrown out the window, and he really played a terrific game in the NFC Championship game, did what he needed to do to win. And yeah, he may not be that superhero who is sort of matching Mahomes play for play, but the rushing production is there. He found a groove with A.J. Brown again. That's a huge development right there. And when they need to, they can absolutely dial it up.
I asked you about the Kansas City Chiefs and how different this year looks compared to the last 2 years. I also think that this Eagles team has got some similarities to the one that we saw 2 years ago because of the defense, which took a hit last year. And I think that's the reason why they weren't in the postseason. Is this team better, though, than the one that lost to the Kansas City Chiefs?
Absolutely. Look at the ranking. It's not even a question. They have two potential, or at least notable players that you could talk about as far as MVPs or Offensive Player of the Years with Jalen and Saquon, and then two really good receivers in Smith and A.J. Brown, and then you have Dallas Goedert in the mix, and a defense that's actually been able to hold the teams that they needed to hold, or at least hold on to games. The Commanders game was kind of a little bit weird there, but I mean, they can win shootouts, they can win close games, and they can do just about everything but beat the Saints. I mean,
I will say this,
yes, I'm still salty about
adding those two rookie defensive backs, Quinyon Mitchell at outside corner and Cooper DeJean at the slot safety, kind of a hybrid role, if you will, also helping out on special teams. And then you add guys like Zach Bond, who's had a career year, and you have injuries at linebacker. Orton Burks steps up and has a terrific NFC Championship game. There's other guys stepping up front too. So maybe they get Brandon Graham back too for the Super Bowl. One extra body. He'd love to, either cap his career or extend his career with the Super Bowl and one chance to win another ring for Philly. But I don't know. It'd be fascinating to kind of put those two defenses side by side and do an apples to apples comparison. But as we've seen this group grow, I'm starting to come around on the idea they might be as good or possibly better than that devastating unit that led the league in sacks a couple years ago.
Which didn't win.
Yeah, so, once again, I think it just looks a little bit different. I'd still probably give the edge to that team from 2 seasons ago, but here's the beauty of it, Eric, and you know this. It doesn't matter. This is a brand new season. Just like we have the MVP conversation, Lamar Jackson's numbers are better than they were a year ago, so he's got to be the MVP. No. That's not how it works. It doesn't matter if the Eagles defense might have been better 2 years ago. This unit right now is very good, and they're matching up against a very talented Chiefs team, the Buffalo Bills. We thought that this was their best chance to go and get over the hump in an AFC championship game.
I told you, I can't trust Buffalo in the postseason. Like, Buffalo in postseason, Buffalo and AFC championship games, it's just like Buffalo chicken wings and blue cheese. They just don't go together.
I feel for Bills fans. I really do. I mean, they're an excellent team. Now, this year, obviously, it started in free agency, having to kind of bleed the roster a little bit. Injuries did kind of hurt them late, not having, Taylor Rapp and Christian Benford for most of that game. So, you think about things like that. But, boy, Josh Allen we're going to say it, he had an MVP caliber season, and they appeared to get that first down up 1 point late in the fourth quarter, decent way through the fourth quarter with the game kind of shifting in their favor. They don't get the call. Chiefs get to go down, score.
If it's that white line,
this is where you could sort of see it coming if you're a Bills fan, because you watch these games against the Chiefs and other teams too, but certainly Kansas City, the main combatant that has sort of broken their heart 4 times now in the playoffs in a 5-year span. It has to be just absolutely awful to sit through these games knowing that if we give them a chance, meaning the Kansas City Chiefs, they are going to cut our throats. So, and that's what happened. And there's really no other way to say it, but you look at Josh and you look how well he played. He's in the peak of his career, and they still can't find a path to the Super Bowl. That's the hardest part for them right now.
And just how we've seen them play, obviously, in the AFC Championship game. Do any of you guys believe, and I would love your guys' opinion down below, if Baltimore had won the game, Mark Andrews makes that catch and everything, and Baltimore goes on to win it, do they beat Kansas City and they're in the postseason or in the Super Bowl right now? Because I think a Baltimore-Philadelphia Super Bowl would have been crazy. The 2 top running backs going to new teams were fighting for 2,000 yards in the rushing record for most of the season. I think 2 really great rushing quarterbacks, 2 really great defenses. Can't really say the same about, I guess, the pass catchers. I mean, they're pretty even, tick for tat, as far as career numbers and stuff goes. So I think it would have been a very, very even Super Bowl and probably even more entertaining than Kansas City, Philadelphia, honestly.
Yeah, I would be loading up on defensive depth, certainly. I mean, and the more impact players you can find, the better. But, you saw when they had to take Benford out and go to Kaiir Elam, who was a first-round pick a couple of years ago, just unfortunately hasn't found a role there in Buffalo. And as soon as he came into the game, they went after him. So cornerback has to be a place you attack. Cole Bishop had somewhat of a tough game at safety. Still a young guy, plenty of promise, but I would like to feel a little bit better about my safety position, even with guys like Taylor Rapp in the mix, Damar Hamlin coming back and playing well after his scary incident in Cincinnati. But, yeah, you have to find more pass rush sources. You have to find, really, I would argue, depth on all 3 levels of the defense. Now, I don't think Brandon Beane's going to go out there and use every draft pick he has on that side of the ball. That might be a little too short-sighted. They probably need another receiver. There are other places where they could bolster their depth, but the offense is in pretty good shape. They can get by with minimal additions on that side. Defensively, though, as Von Miller gets up there and Matt Milano's injuries keep piling up and things like that, that you just need a couple more difference makers. And look what the Chiefs did a couple years ago when they drafted that slew of young defensive backs and they won a Super Bowl the following year. That made a big difference. So don't tell me that the draft can't have an impact. Obviously, it has in Philly and other places as well.
Yeah.
Is anybody actually even saying that the draft don't impact nothing? Stop it.
That's why I can't wait for the NFL draft. I know we got 30 teams that are thinking about it right now, except for those 2 teams playing in the Super Bowl. Speaking of the draft changing the fortunes of a franchise, we saw that with the number 4 team, the Commanders. They get Jaden Daniels, and we say, hey, everything is going to be okay. I don't want to be the negative dude here, but, I don't know. Sometimes we've seen some teams have some success, and it doesn't guarantee success that following season. Why do you feel so confident that Jaden Daniels can be better next season than he was this season?
Yeah, and it may, Jaden may even take a step back. We obviously saw that with C.J. Stroud this year, where he didn't, we were sort of ready to elevate him into that up.
But that was mostly O-line and injuries. I mean, there were some bad plays. Don't get me wrong. He was making bad decisions too, but at least from what I kept hearing and what I kept seeing, I was just noticing a lot of issues with the offensive line, not having a lot of time, which obviously, if you start getting that into your mind, it speeds up his clock eternally, causing him to make more mistakes even when the offensive line is doing good because he can't really trust them. It's like when you see something that kind of alters your trust a little bit, you can't fully trust that person again. He's not really having full confidence in O-line. And then the receiver situation, I mean, they were constantly hurt. He doesn't really, I mean, his tight end's okay. Could really use maybe like a first-round tight end pick, I wouldn't even be mad at it by Houston, honestly. Getting one of the top 2 guys at tight end probably would help out. Or just go hammer that offensive line. Depends on which one you want to hit in free agency, you know. But I think the Commanders are set up for a little bit more success in the season 2 and not to let Jaden Daniels slip that far, even if he does slump.
Upper echelon of quarterbacks. That didn't happen this year. Wasn't all his fault, but I also don't think he played quite as well. He's going to get everybody's best shot next year. There's no sneaking up on this guy. Defensive coordinators who have the Commanders on their schedule are going to watch pour over the tape and make sure they can find any kind of cracks in the armor to find out, how do you beat this guy? What's the best way? Obviously, you probably start with the Eagles game and see what the shortcomings were there. They had a 3-game losing streak as well. But that said, hard not to think that the sky is extremely high for this guy and this team too. There were so many holes in this roster, Mike. I think I had him 26th in my August ranking, 28th at one point. We had a graphic on that a couple weeks ago just to make sure everybody knew how low I had him. But I was sort of a believer. I'm thinking, boy, this is a team that could maybe surprise, win 7 or 8 games. They did far more than that. It also matters that Adam Peters is making picks and signing for agents, that Dan Quinn is the head coach. He did a tremendous job this year. We'll see if Cliff Kingsbury stays, but it looks like he's going to, there's a decent chance he remains as well. And you could just take this thing pretty far. But, they said the same thing about Joe Burrow a few years ago and other young quarterbacks who've had those terrific moments early in their career. There is no guarantee, as you pointed out.
Yeah, I almost think the coolest thing about this story, and it's a little different than teams that weren't expected to do much and then really surpassed that expectation. I think the coolest part about this is Washington not only was not expected to do well, but they were sort of left aside, right? Like for a couple seasons, we just said, hey, like, do you really want to be on that team? And now all of a sudden, I think guys are going to want to play with Jaden Daniels. I think guys on the defensive side are going to want to play.
Yo, that's so I said, do you really want to be on that team? The level of disrespect for this is crazy.
And cool. We already saw that Bobby Wagner's a perfect example of that. I think they're going to get better. And I think all of a sudden the Commanders are an attractive team for a lot of free agents potentially in the NFL. I know we sort of hinted at the NFL draft with you being at the Senior Bowl and me at the East-West Shrine game. Those games, by the way, on NFL Network this week. Cannot wait for the matchups. But there was some coaching news and how some of those hires are going to affect what we see next season. We'll examine that. Covered up next on Power Rankings.
Ooh. Coaching move.
Well, back here on Power Rankings, always nice to see some coaches get opportunities, and there's been so much made of that. Johnson, Liam Cohen. We saw Ryan Schottenheimer on Monday get the announcement from the Dallas Cowboys. But when the Jets announced Aaron Glenn, there was a lot of excitement on social media from former Jets players, and after seeing what Glenn had to say when he was introduced, you can understand why.
I forgot. I didn't even.
To any players that's here now, put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. Listen, there are going to be some challenges, but with challenges gets opportunity. Mm-hmm. But here's what I do know.
Okay.
We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this.
Oh. I'm ready to play. I'm going to New York.
Oh, get fired up. Time for Power Moves presented by Energizer. I hear something like that from Aaron Glenn. I'm ready to go and play for this dude. How can this guy change a culture of losing very quickly, and much like we saw what Dan Campbell do with the Lions?
Last time I remember them boys actually winning was back when Mark Sanchez was still QB back in like 2008.
Yeah, and obviously with Campbell, there was a stretch there where it was a slog, right? It took really a year and a half before you started to see any kind of a tangible improvement, but it's about establishing belief within your own locker room, right? Making sure you have a core of guys, the ones who were there at the beginning of the Campbell era in Detroit, the handful who were still there at the end. Those are the ones who end up being your leaders. And so look, they have a player in Sauce Gardner who's a tremendous talent, didn't have his best year. They need him to get back to where he was in his 2023 form. Aaron Glenn's probably the man for that. They've got to find a quarterback. There is a laundry list of things they need to do. So you talk about the personnel and whatnot. I mean, we have some boxes to check off here, but it's about identifying the players in your locker room who can help you out. And then also, if you want to use Washington as kind of the blueprint, if you will, make sure you have that list of hungry veterans, young players who didn't get a great chance in their first go-round. Bring them in for depth. That's really what Adam Peters did, I thought, and it was an underrated piece of what the Commanders' approach was this offseason. Okay. Yeah, Daniels was a huge part of it. So if they can get...
I'm going to take that in mind for my next Madden rebuild. Y'all tuned into the game with y'all. Smooth that game. We're rebuilding the Rams over there, so I might have to take that into account.
Something close to Jaden Daniels, that would be a great start, but it also has to do with those other complementary pieces they bring in, and the Jets are going to have a lot of new faces this year. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's sort of weird to think about what the identity of that team was with Robert Saleh a couple of years ago. And I know he was there this season before getting relieved of his duties, but defense to then offense, if they want to let him go, I got to think it might with go back to the defensive side. But clearly a culture change there. They're going to have some questions around QB1 and who that guy is going to be. But speaking of culture changes and also questions to that quarterback spot, Pete Carroll, the guy in Vegas. Let's take a listen.
Took us a few years to get to the very top of the last couple programs I was with. We're starting right now, going for it immediately. We don't have some timeline. We got to make it 5 or 6 years down the road. That's not what we're thinking. We're going to start right now to go after it and build this team as quickly as we can. As John saw Max back there, Max, send the message, man. We're coming after you. We're going to come find you guys and get this thing rolling as soon as possible.
I just don't think they're in a win now position though. Like, I mean, you got the D-line talent is there, which can help with pass rush, but I mean, you don't really have weapons. You don't have a run game. You have a secondary. Linebackers is okay. Don't have a quarterback. And don't have an early pick to really kind of get one of the top quarterbacks unless you make a trade. So free agency, as I said, I almost forgot Joe Milton, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, reunite possibly. Joking about bringing Marshawn Lynch back too. I think that man far into retirement. I don't even think that man got legs to run no more.
Max seems to find everyone who happens to be a quarterback when he's out on the football field. He's always in go mode. When I heard the news, I was a little surprised. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I actually really like this fit for the Raiders. Do you?
Yeah, I think it brings professionalism to the operation here, right? Now the Raiders have obviously been off the tracks and haven't really found their groove and haven't had any kind of consistency. And it's fascinating that Tom Brady seemingly has an increasing sort of imprint on this team and a voice in the front office and is obviously pulling a lot of strings behind the scenes. So, the fact that he would recommend Carroll, I'm sure, is part of the deal, and knows how tough he is, went up against him in a classic Super Bowl of yore, and we know how that one ended. Obviously Brady on top, but now he's bringing on Carroll, and I think that the plan will be, hey, have somebody you're developing as your young lieutenant, the guy who's going to eventually replace you. But Pete has the energy of a guy 15, 20 years younger than he is. He's an incredible man who probably doesn't sleep that much, is always dreaming and thinking football. And if you have a guy like Max Crosby already there, a tone setter, yes, I know Max has only been able to do so much, but I think Pete and him together, that's sort of a match made in heaven. Again, like the Jets, still need a quarterback, still have a ton of issues to sort out, offensive line, whatnot. Even the defense has plenty of holes, and Pete's going to want to get on that part too. But I can't wait to see where this goes. I know we get excited about the young coordinators, but what about the guys who are going to end up in Canton and the ones who are going to be the most celebrated coaches of their generation? I'd like that guy on my sideline.
No question. And you're right, that energy and that vibe, the idea of preaching competition all the time, that's going to be important on those sidelines. I was texting with Steve Weich about this because we were both saying how much we liked it. And then I said, hey, it almost doesn't matter if it's Pete Carroll or Bill Belichick or insert any other name of any other coach. If they don't figure out QB1, there's going to be a problem. Maybe it's Russ. Yep. You could throw out Geno's. I know Russ has been sort of linked there because of his contract and his time and relationship with Pete Carroll, but they got to figure that out. They tried to figure it out in the draft. They drafted drafted Brock Bowers instead because they couldn't get that quarterback. Maybe this year in the draft, maybe it's a guy that I see at the East-West Shrine Bowl. Maybe it's a guy that you're going to see at the Senior Bowl. But nonetheless, some major decisions for Pete Carroll and that front office. Needless to say, we get to do a Super Bowl preview next week on Power Rankings. Eric, you're the best man. Enjoy watching some of these college kids. I know I will, and looking forward to doing it.
And I mean, if we're just being honest, like, yes, Brock Bowers is still a weapon for them, but I mean, a weapon with no quarterback and no sidekick is not really a weapon. Now, he did great in his rookie season, don't get me wrong, but we need to match up a receiver over there so he can continue to do great, because they're going to double team. They're going to find a way to get rid of that and try to make him have a sophomore slump. So let's get another receiver out there, let's get another quarterback, maybe hit free agency for it and try to use any trade bait to go up. Like I said, there's plenty of young talent. Fields, Milton, Richardson. I don't know if Richardson's necessarily on the market, but you could probably make something shake for that trade. There are other options, and if you really want to win now, you can go veteran, Russell Wilson. There are definitely options for you to pick and choose. A little quarterback carousel here, and I think that's gonna be the fun part. We've had the kind of head coach carousel go around, although the Saints are still looking for theirs, but we pretty much got ours with Kellen Moore. That's what I'm hearing is that it's almost a done deal. Now it's time for the quarterback carousel, where a quarterback's going to start going. And that's my favorite point of the offseason, to see where all the new players or big names are going to be on new teams. And it kind of helps paint the picture for the draft. After really kind of the first round, the next thing we're ready for is just who's going to be starting. So let me know what you guys think about it, man, down below, about draft season, about what your favorite team, if you had a coaching change, do you like it? Do you not like it? And what do you think your top moves and top needs should be? Top 3 moves or top 3 needs for your team now that you got your new coach. And if you don't get a new coach, what are your top 3 draft needs for your team? If you're one of the teams playing in the Super Bowl, are you riding and dying for your team? Are you kind of being like, I love my team, but we're probably about to lose? Let me know down below all in the comment section, man. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. You guys way at the video. It's me, your boy, Sean. This movie, Black King Leo. And I'll catch you guys out the video, man. I'm going for the day. Peace.